We've talked a ton about this Atlanta Braves rotation this offseason, and a lot of comments that I get on YouTube and anything that I post this on, or they try to remind me that Ian Anderson is still in the building. And yes, Ian Anderson is still in the building. So I wanted to talk a little bit about him. I just wrote an article on the site. Go check it out, sportstalkatl.com. He is expected to be back mid-season. And while I think the scenarios are similar to Michael Soroka in that you're only everything he gives you this season is icing on the cakes. You can't have any expectations that you can't make moves this offseason expecting Ian Anderson to come back and pitch for you in October. With that being said, as I said in the article, I feel much more confident about Ian Anderson eventually having an impact on this Braves team in the future than I ever did Soroka or even Kyle Wright, who are no longer with the organization. Simple reason why. Tommy John is a pretty cut and dry surgery. There's not usually a lot of lingering effects. Usually they go through it. They go through the rehab. Their arm gets healthy. They come back better on the other end. It's very simple. That's not to say that they can't have another Tommy John surgery later down the road, even though it's more rare. But it's a pretty cut and dry surgery, and the guys usually come back, and there's no lingering effects, and things turn out better usually for the pitcher. So I feel confident, I don't know how much confident I can say, because I still think Ian Anderson has to work on things from a pitcher standpoint and that he needs a third offering and stuff like that. But I do feel confident he's going to be healthy this year. And if he can figure some things out as a pitcher, which I'm sure he's had times to work on, consider during this lengthy layoff, that he could eventually be a starting pitcher for the Braves again.
Yeah, I think what you said at the beginning of that is important, that hope is not a strategy. You can't hope that Ian Anderson is going to get back to form. What you said, everything he gives, icing on the cake. And I'm not saying that Anthopoulos doesn't know this, because he absolutely does. Anthopoulos isn't counting on Ian Anderson to contribute at the major league level. He might expect him to kind of get some innings and try and get back to where he was for maybe rebound in 2025, but he's absolutely not expecting him to be a considerable piece of this rotation or even team in general in 2024. Now, with that being said, I do agree with you, because the kid had a ton of experience, of success immediately and on the biggest stage in October. Some very memorable moments, including in the 2021 World Series, that Game 3. So he does have the stuff. Now, like to your point, the league probably caught on. You need a third offering. Unless you're Spencer Strider and can throw it 100 miles an hour, you need a third offering, or maybe even a fourth offering. And so maybe he's trying to think about what that looks like, in this time away from the game. And another guy who could potentially contribute in 2024 is Ynoa. In terms of stuff, he definitely has a blistering fastball, wipeout slider that, could potentially look good out of the bullpen. He also had Tommy John surgery. He was a guy who experienced a lot of success. And then unfortunately, young kid made a dumb mistake, broke his hand, came back, was never the same guy, had the Tommy John. But he's another guy that obviously Anthopoulos is not counting on, but anything he gives you in 2024 is going to be icing on the cake. He seems like a better fit in the bullpen because of that, 1-2 punch with the fastball, which, we've talked about ad nauseum. The bullpen needs a little bit more velocity. Ynoa has that. So there's two guys right there, internally, high upside, low risk.
Yeah, I mean, I look at all these guys. I mean, you can go even further. They're all like lottery tickets, right? And you only need one of them to hit. They're all like 6-leg parlays. And you just need one to hit to make your Sunday money back at the end of the night, right? And I look at the same way with AJ Smith-Shawver going into next year. Now, obviously, we think potentially AJ Smith-Shawver down the line will figure it out and become a big piece. Whether that happens next year is more like a lottery ticket. Same thing with Hurston Waldrep. Same thing with Ian Anderson. Same thing with Huascar Ynoa. And I think you could even say the same thing about a guy like Ronaldo Lopez, given that he hasn't been a starting pitcher for a few years. They're going to try him out. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. But when you're looking for that fourth starter, and ideally, and hell, you could even put Bryce Elder in that mix too, because if he can figure it out and not run out of gas at the end of the season and continue to look like the guy he was in the first half, you found a fourth starter. So you've got a bunch of these options. Now, that's not to say they shouldn't go out there and try to get a frontline guy. I still think they're going to try to do whatever they can to land a Dylan Cease, do whatever they can to land a Corbin Burns, because they want to win a World Series as bad as anyone. I know we all think we want to win it, but they want to win it as bad as anyone. But you do have all these guys that are legitimate lottery tickets. Like if one of these guys hits this year, and it doesn't, and that's the other thing. It's just this year, right? He doesn't have to even be a long-term option. Like Ian Anderson could like he did basically at the early part of his career, come in, throw 17 shutout innings in the postseason and never pitch again for the Braves, and we'd be just happy. So there really are just lottery tickets that we're hoping that by the time October rolls around, they're pitching their best baseball.
Yeah, and another scenario, let me just paint a potential situation. Ronaldo Lopez, we don't know if he's really going to work out as a starter. Still a multiple innings guy out of the bullpen, high leverage guy out of the bullpen. Obviously, I'm not going to put Ynoa on that stage just yet, but he kind of fits that similar build that, he could potentially be a multi-innings guy out of the bullpen. So, that's just a potential scenario for a guy like Ynoa.
Yeah, about the only thing I can't see happen in next year's postseason, I know we're far away, is Brian Snitker sitting there and letting Bryce Elder throw 3 innings. And that goes for any of these number 4 guys. I mean, now that Alex Anthopoulos, and I think he made a point of this, he's gotten a ton of arms in the building that can go multiple innings. There needs to be an expectation that, and this even goes for the number 3 guy or a Max Fried in a big game. Like
anyone,
Max Fried starts pitching poorly and it's a 3-3 game in the 4th inning. You got to go to one of these guys. And I think there was a point of emphasis this offseason in getting a number of guys that can pitch multiple innings and potentially, map out this postseason, because for whatever reason, I thought the Braves, obviously the Braves are lacking it a little last year, but they could have done a damn better job than they did in that game 3 and stuff like that. So that's on Snitker. I'm sure those conversations have been had. I'm sure he regrets it as much as anyone, but they have options, and maybe they get another one. Maybe they don't, but Ian Anderson, Huascar Ynoa, AJ Smith-Shawver, they are all options. Coming up after the break, the Falcons are getting clowned, Alex. You wrote about it on the site. Brian Burns, Derek Brown. We are going to discuss this we're going to continue to discuss this embarrassing loss to the 1-12